Welcome back, guys. Or if you're new here, this is Automotive Anonymous, and today I'm driving a 2024 Subaru Crosstrek. More specifically, this is the limited trim level, so it has the 2.5 liter naturally aspirated boxer engine, and it has some Falken all-season tires. And today we're going to see how well it drives in what has been labeled a blizzard warning. This part of the state of Idaho has had pretty bad weather for the last few days specifically. Let's see how this ZR2 does. Does it keep traction? Does it make its turn? Looks like it's gonna do pretty well. Let's see if we fare as well. So basically today I'm just driving a few different vehicles, starting with this Crosstrek because a lot of you guys buy Crosstreks. They sell well over 100,000 every single year in North America alone in the United States. And on a 17-degree day where there's not very many people out compared to what these roads usually look like, I want to see how it does driving and if I can recommend a Subaru to you, especially if you live somewhere that gets inclement weather like this, or if you often get a mixture of driving conditions. Depending on what town you live in, sometimes like when I was going through college, I might be driving into or out of a storm. You never know when you might need a good, competent all-wheel drive vehicle. So let's have some fun with this Crosstrek today. Right now we're going 35. Let's see how well this thing slows down. Brakes lock up. It does a really good job. Of course, don't do this if there are any drivers behind you. Looks like there's a truck up ahead, an F-250, an old school one from 15 years ago, and it looks like it didn't make its turn in time. Trucks have notoriously bad turning radiuses to begin with. And then up ahead we have another F-150, or a regular F-150, not a Super Duty, and a rear drive Chrysler 300, and an all-wheel drive Highlander. So I'm curious to see what kind of vehicles we're going to encounter today, but I'm sure most of you guys are watching this video to see how well does the Crosstrek do. So that's what I'll try to stay mostly on topic with, and I'll try to keep this video to no more than 10 or 12 minutes to give you an idea of what you can expect out of your Subaru Crosstrek with the 2.5 liter. I've only been off camera for a few seconds, but instantly you can see that this 4,400 pound rear wheel drive Chrysler 300, which is basically a Dodge Charger, it's being left behind by even the front wheel drive sedans and all the all-wheel drive SUVs you saw just a moment ago. And then I have it in regular mode with traction control on currently. I'll turn traction off in a little bit, and then if we drop below 25 miles an hour, it'll let us go into the 2 levels of X mode that we have here. Basically, stage 1, snow and mud, or snow and dirt, lets you spin the tires a little bit more easily before it restricts the system. Level 2, or deep snow and mud, that lets you spin them even more freely. Level 2 usually keeps traction control off, whereas I believe level 1 has it, but you'll see for sure pretty soon if you pay attention to the instrument panel. And let's see how we do braking up here. ABS didn't engage that time, and I gave it probably 80% pedal. You can kind of see where I fall down and the front drops just a little bit. Hood dive as we left these vehicles. If you guys like Subaru as a company, the Crosstrek as a model, or my video so far, please consider liking my video. That small act of kindness really goes a long way. And don't forget to comment below. I want to hear your thoughts and opinions. There's the F-250 that couldn't make its turn on time, but we're going to try not to give it too much flack. Thankfully, the license plate and any other identifying features are covered up. So keep in mind, when you have a high center of gravity like that, and when you're in rear-wheel drive only, you're probably not going to be turning too well. And it's not necessarily the best thing to have to constantly be putting your truck or SUV into 4-high to launch across intersections. Also, you're not supposed to drive as fast as you can in those, like interstate speeds or above. Usually a lot of those, especially the older ones, don't want you to go above 60 miles an hour, which when road conditions are like this and there's black ice everywhere underneath the snow, you probably shouldn't be going that fast anyways. And if you're considering buying a Subaru, I'll link Twinfall Subaru down in the description below. Everything new is always under MSRP, and for that I really appreciate the work they do. I probably should have started with this, but I used to own a Crosstrek Premium for 2 years and about 40,000 miles, and I've reviewed all the Crosstrek trim levels for 2023 and 2024 as of a few months ago. So I haven't driven one of these in several months, not that I can, as far as I can remember anyways. And these are Subaru's smallest vehicle. They're basically built off of the Impreza, but then it's lifted an extra 3 or so inches. And depending on what spec you get, they have a bunch of goodies. More related to off-roading capability, or soft roading as it's called. And then a little bit for interior creature comforts, like this one that has leather seats and is honestly pretty well loaded. And even on these all-season Falken tires that I didn't notice them being Snowflake Mountain Peak rated, they actually are doing pretty well. It's easy to get ahead of traffic when it's safe to do so. It's easy to change lanes too. And then let's see how we brake. Maybe a third of the pedal. ABS didn't lock up, and it did a pretty good job. I'll give it a little bit of gas when the light turns green here. All right, and giving it maybe half throttle. With traction on, it gets right up to speed. I did detect a little bit of wheel spin. The system limits itself pretty well though when you leave traction on and you're not in the snow and mud settings. So Subarus do really well. They're basically what an all-wheel drive or like a four-wheel drive truck or SUV feels like when you have good tires on it and you put it into 4 high and you launch, whether you're in a parking lot just for fun, testing out your traction, actually going across a really icy intersection. These feel like that all the time, and just the convenience of having Subaru's mechanical symmetrical all-wheel drive, which is far superior to most other CUVs, especially in all these $25,000 to $40,000 economy ones. Realistically, Subaru's system works really well. There's not like a clutch that engages and disengages the rear when it detects slip once you're already slipping, because the rear is always going and usually has about half of your power. It's pretty cool to feel like you can take corners and do things without slipping and sliding. This Audi Q7 in front of us, which I'm assuming probably has Quattro, it shows TDI, so it has the turbo diesel. It's going really slow, 20 miles an hour on this 35, which I will say I've driven this in icy conditions before, and in my own Subaru Outback Wilderness, I can pretty easily go the speed limit, even in conditions like this. Let's maybe pass them, get back up to the speed limit, so we're not going 40% under the limit, and it's easy to do so. It's easy to pass back. You can obviously tell which lane's been driven in the most here, but this Crosstrek is doing surprisingly well, especially for having bone stock tires that have about 9/30 seconds tread depth from the factory. Subaru tires actually seem to be pretty well. They're not shaved down and as cheap as some of the other vehicles that come with them. So I appreciate that. You won't have to buy new ones for probably at least 40,000 miles. At least that's been my experience owning a couple different Subarus. Here's kind of a fun country neighborhood road. Let's see how it does. Half throttle. Wheel spin, but you can see it's going relatively straight. Brakes. ABS kicks in and then it kind of lunges you to a stop. Now we're in deep snow and mud. Traction is off, as you can see. Let's do the same test. Assuming the ground and the lack of, ruts already is pretty consistent. Oh yeah, we're spinning way more freely, losing control. In this condition, I would leave traction control on in regular, normal, non-X mode. I'm gonna get back up to the neighborhood speed of 25 miles an hour and show you slamming on the brakes what this vehicle wants to do. That's usually the distance it would probably take to stop from about 40 miles an hour, maybe a little bit more. You could obviously hear ABS. And now let's hit the gas at 15 miles an hour, half throttle. Traction on. And it does pretty well. Again, braking, you need to leave yourself probably about twice the distance on these tires that you normally would expect. And start very soon, because when there's a stop sign, you don't want to accidentally slide out onto a busy road. But pulling out onto a main road, getting back up to speed, this Crosstrek is doing really well. I'm not going to be as silly in it as I was in my Outback in this other video I filmed just recently, since we've had this blizzard warning and everything. I let that one lose control a little bit more, especially with the turbo. That one is more difficult to control once you start to spin. But because this is a brand new vehicle, I just wanted to show you guys what you can expect driving it mildly and regularly through town. Here's that corner coming up again, and we'll see if we can take it at the speed limit when we aren't following a Q7 that's being a little bit overly cautious. Or, I mean, maybe their tires are worn out. That's a valid reason then. They were doing what's safe for them, so I have no room to knock them. But yeah, 35, this does really well, but you can see there's a lineup of cars, so let's hop on the brakes early. And again, they did exactly what they needed to do. I am thankful I haven't seen any car accidents out today. And these roads do seem to be much less busy than they usually are when I come into town. Easy to stop at this busy intersection. Usually the black ice and all the snow gets really packed down in intersections and it's harder to get going. So when you're driving a Subaru, it's almost like you have an unfair advantage and you have more margin for error, more margin for lack of traction, things like that, because it just does so well to get you going. But four-wheel drive or all-wheel drive doesn't help you stop. So winter tires or Snow Peak Mountain rated tires are obviously going to be the best in most cases. I will say that one thing I personally do not like at all is driving your semis in winter conditions like this or worse, when it is easy for either party to lose control. I do physical therapy full-time in different towns, and I often drive a minimum of 70 miles on those days. And I see a lot of vehicles off the road, hardly ever Subarus like the two in front of me right here. But usually it's front-wheel drive cars or pickup trucks or semis. I've seen a lot of jackknifed and rolled semis. I've seen some pretty nasty accidents. So I will say, give semi drivers space. Don't try to cut them off. Don't try to pass in front of them if there isn't even a lane. So often early in the morning when I'm going to work, the semi is making the lane because the passing lane is just powder. It's covered. You can't see tracks at all. So even though there's nothing I would rather be in than my Subaru Outback Wilderness with a good set of tires on those days, I'm still not gonna try to pass them, and I don't think you guys should either. Use your best judgment out there. Be safe. I'll give you guys one more acceleration. We'll keep traction on. This is just the normal drive mode, half throttle. It's going straight, but we're above the limit, so let's just back on up now. These can do really well with the front wheels pulling and the rear wheels pushing you. I love Subaru symmetrical all-wheel drive. For the couple dozen days a year that I drive in conditions like this, that is the whole reason why I buy a Subaru over any other brand right now. I've driven rear-wheel drive and four-wheel drive trucks enough and other vehicles in general that currently the Subaru is where my money is being spent. But if you guys like this video, if it was helpful in any way, if you want to see more stuff like this, I'll do a few more videos like this while we're having such crummy weather. But please consider liking my video. That act of kindness, I really do appreciate. Please comment below. Just share your thoughts and opinions, what your experiences have been driving in winter conditions or blizzard warning conditions, if you guys get those warnings where you're at. And subscribe if you haven't already, if you're interested in watching more stuff. Otherwise, I always wish you the best. Until next time, take care.